So I think we're a little bit behind, and they have both given us wonderful presentations. But what we really want you to understand and take away with you is that both of these men are community organizers. Sergio organizes from from an academic health center perspective. Al organizes from the community's perspective. So I thought that I'd ask them, and Al, it's a different question, to share with you all one partnership, one activity that they have going on that really models the beauty of what CTSAs are all about in terms of addressing health issues that are of primary concern of the community, and the merger or partnership between community and academics, investigators and other staff to address that issue. So Sergio, we'll start with you since you had a chance to know the question.
Sure. Can you hear me? All right. Well, I presented the example of the Sentinel Network, which is this national collaborative, and there are 6 CTSAs involved in that. But also, in addition to that, there are 2 national community-based partners, including one that Al has been very involved with, and I'm a member of community campus partnerships for health, CCPH. And this has been a wonderful collaborative that has allowed us to work with community health workers in a different way. Usually, community health workers, and we call them promotoras as well, had been bridges for community members in terms of health-related information or health promotion, issues related to prevention as well. But rarely they had been used for research purposes. In this case, we had been using them for research purposes, really to reach out for those communities that had been traditionally or historically underrepresented in research. Are there some of you from the represent the Sentinel Network here?
Yeah, I know at least one, Megan.
If you can
over there.
Oh. Would love to talk with you more about it. But this is just an example. But I was very, very impressed with the examples that you have on the posters. Really, I think that I could have chosen many of them and present them in the context of the talk that I was given. But there are many, many examples, and my hope is that now that I have the pleasure and the honor to be with you, to learn more examples so I can help disseminate this information as well. One very quickly thing that I want to say, because you made me salivate many times with those, what seem to be the apple pie, apple pie. So, and you said something that really is striking, that you can only get a piece of the pie if you are at the table. But one thing is to eat the pie, and another one is to be the pie. I have heard, people say that if you are not at the table, most likely you are on the menu. And I think that we need to make that distinction, because very often within community engagement in my own organization, I feel that we are on the menu, and which means that we have to be very, very conscientious and very aware of and raising our voices, because only communities like you really can help make sustainable change. So let's not only eat the pie, but be at the table.
Karen, so would you repeat the question?
The question is to highlight one partnership, one effort that you're involved with from your from wherever you choose, because, you know, we not only work in our own home base, but nationally with other partners. So describe that effort, you know, and how it models what the objectives of the CTSA are about.
I think one example of it is a project that we're working on at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Working in partnership with them is around creating what we call NC Track Central. And NC Track Central is a partnership that really allows not just academics, but community partners to have access to a researcher. And the way it works is that if you have a research question that you're interested in, an issue or a concern that you have in your community, and you want to kind of find out more about that issue, and maybe even conduct something basic such as a literature search or review, you can actually call a number. There's a live person on that line that will respond to that question and will actually connect you to an academic partner, and you all can begin to kind of discuss and advance this. I think I've heard some examples of similar processes and procedures, you know, opportunities in other institutions, but I think that's one that kind of stands out in my mind. Mm-hmm. I really believe it's a really good opportunity because community people have a lot of good questions. They have a lot of issues that they want to advance. They just don't always know how, and I think this kind of represents a best practice in how to do that.
Okay. Also share with us some process kind of perspectives on how you organize that work. So Sergio, for example, I sit with Sergio on the outcomes work group, and we did a manuscript. So, you know, talk about how we do that kind of a thing.
Sure. This particular example that Karen mentions is a very large collaborative, you know, very strong collaboration that we did for about 2 years. There are 12 CTSAs represented, and there are almost 20 people who actively was involved in writing a manuscript, including Karen. And the manuscript is about creating a framework of a taxonomy of community health indicators that would allow us to know when you know, the health of communities are being improved. There is a lot of talk nationwide in terms of you know, using the right methodologies with the right metrics and with the specific measures that would allow us to have a finger on the pulse on when are we making progress. But it is like a bubble tower, excuse me. You know, it is, as is typical in academic health centers or research centers, there are a lot of silos, and people use their own, you know, in this case, their own measures, you know, without sharing them with others. This is an attempt to really have a common understanding as to what matters from both perspectives, from the community perspective and from the academic perspective, and to have a balanced approach. But absolutely, one of the emphasis on that is that we need to have the community perspective very, very, I mean, front and center. And just to give you a sense, we did a very comprehensive lit review and look at major documents available from the National Quality Forum, Healthy People 2020, the county health rankings, etc., nationally and internationally. And I'm pleased to tell you that we identified 3 different levels that we ought to be paying attention to. The first one are the social determinants of health. You know, that now we know that just having access to healthcare is not enough. We really need to do much more than that, and to reach out and look at where people live, play, study, you know, socialize, and to get into consideration. So social determinants of health, indicators of community health, and then very specific measures. Mm-hmm. And we're hoping that this will bring a little bit uniformity to the bubble tower.
Al, go ahead, did you want to comment? I wanted you to share about NC Bone in particular, and he's past president of that, and it's National Community-Based Organizational Network. I get it right? Cool. All right.
So NC Bone is part of the North Carolina Mafia and Michigan Mafia, but we're really expanding it. Others are invited across the country to be a part of NC Bone. So last night, when we had dinner, Sergio and Mark and all of us were eating. I'm sorry, did you get your invitation? So anyway, you didn't open your email. So last night we went out to dinner, and I was commenting to Sergio that I was just impressed with his ability to just know all of these people. He was just talking about all these friends and that he knew across the country. And when I'm on the conference calls with the CTSA, and let me just say that is a daunting task because I'm not academic. Shouldn't say I'm not academic, but I'm placed not in an academic setting. I'm not in, work in an academic setting. Which, by the way, I certainly believe that community folk are academics. So let me just be clear on that. But so on those calls, all these individuals are there, and they're talking about this person at Hopkins and this person at Emory and this person at Harvard and all this kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, I don't know any of these people. So last night, we were talking about people, relationships, and who knew who and all of that. So I woke up this morning and I thought, wow, Ella, I got fired up all over again. Because I realized that it is so important to create a national network of community organizations, that we know each other, that I know a little bit about you and your work, and you know a little bit about me and my work. And if I can't do it, my biggest concern right now, Ms. Deloney mentioned something to me earlier, she's talking about passing it on to the next generation. She's like, I'm giving it up, passing it on to you. And I'm thinking, look, I'm the youngest member of AARP, And so I have an AARP card. So I'm looking behind me, trying to pass it on to someone else, because I'm not going to be here always. So the National Community-Based Organizational Network is about just that, about creating a network just the same way that academics have formal and informal networks. We are an organization of organizations. And I want to be in a position wherein if someone asks me, because of where I sit in the CTSA, do you know someone that could serve on the PCORI panel, or do you know someone that can serve on this? I can say, yeah, sure, I know someone from Flint that can do that, or I know someone from Sacramento that can do that kind of work. We need a network, and that's what NC Bone has really been working at. And I just want to encourage you to go and to visit our website, to find out more about NC Bone, to get involved in NC Bone. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of work, but you are, Sergio is right. If you're not at the table, you don't get a piece of the pie, and you're on the agenda, and people can just easily forget you. And so that's what NC Bone is all about, making sure that our academic partners and funding partners do not forget it. And it's out of NC Bone that we are advancing people to be placed at the national level on national panels and groups within the American Public Health Association and other settings. I'm still learning CTSA, and I've been doing this now probably about over a decade. I did not imagine when I first started that I would still be doing it, and I hope to do more of it. But, you just jump in there. I have a friend that said to me, she said, Al, you're the kind of person, you start talking even before you know what you're talking about. And I thought, somewhere in there's a compliment, right? Okay? And so I said, well, yeah, I am. I'm just a very extrovert. I'm an ENTJ person when it comes to the Myers-Briggs. So I think outwardly. And that's okay. So I just put it all on the table and clean it up later and apologize. And so, jump on in there. And that includes things like being involved in a local health department board or anything. Just I don't care. Just get involved in your community at some level and make a difference.
Wonderful. We've got about 15 minutes or so for Q&A. So I think there'll be mics roaming around. Do we have any questions for either Al or Sergio? Here's one. Oh, there's one question right over there. Raise your hand.
Yes. Okay. So I guess, if you, have the, again, a genuine concern to increase trust, say, between the institutions and community, you want to enhance health and have better outcomes, and you want to decrease health disparities. I'm wondering, since you gentlemen are on the national level of the CTSA, have you had the opportunity to, say, present to those at, at that level significant, the need for significant economic opportunities? That's why I appreciate when Al on his slide on one of the PowerPoints had addressed that. So I'm wondering, have you guys had the opportunity, what was the sort of response to begin to say that if you want those sorts of things, one, better, significant economic opportunities for people, that helps address that, and also to increase enrollment in the medical, dental, nursing schools, et cetera, where you have the community people, again, represented. They're in those communities. They're the ones, you have people that look like them, that are part of their culture, are given the care. Or else, if not, then what happens is that it looks like you want this community engagement, but the people who are going to be engaged, and again, the institutions, is just like it was before. So it's like you just want opportunities so that they can do that, and the people don't, in the community, have really participate.
Okay.
I'll let Sergio go first.
I was, my game plan was if there were tough questions, immediately give them to.
He's like, oh.
Yeah. So okay. Well, that's a wonderful question. Let me tell you that I had been in academia basically all of my life, and I love communities. I feel comfortable relating to people, and I feel more comfortable being in community settings than being in academic settings, quite frankly. And I have come to appreciate that a lot of academicians or researchers really don't understand and don't feel comfortable, reaching out. We have, for example, a training program that we developed years ago, and now it's mandatory for all the scholars that are a part of our CTSA, that we call it Get Real. And the reason behind the Get Real is to expose these researchers who are in training with communities. So we have steps, from first, talk about communication with communities and what are communities about. But then we have this idea that select the specific aspect of your research that you are doing, and most of them are basic researchers, sometimes a molecule, sometimes, most of them are lab researchers. And then the second step is, so they present slides or whatever medium they want to use with our community, some of our community advisor board members, and from whom they get an earful, in terms of, oh my God, this slide no one is going to understand, or you can simplify this. And then the third step is that they go to a community of their selection, or of their choosing, to share that with them. And then the final step is that we get all together, debrief, and see what the learning was, hoping that this is going to be a part of their nature, that put it in the water, if you will, you know. But I'm bringing this very specific example because every year, you know, when we train these scholars, there are some who are so anxious. I mean, this is like being with community members is like, my God, you know? And what is incredible is that once they do it, they love it, you know, they love it. So I think that this is just a simple example of what we need to do, not only with those in training, but the leaders as well. And some of that has happened, I can tell you, in my own institution and in other institutions as well. But it is not enough. We have to do an institutional cultural change in our academic settings to understand much better what communities are about and to drive home the message that unless they get involved, community members get involved, the research may not be relevant at all, and it will be on shelves.
That's
you know?
right. That's right.
So I think the other piece of that is just really we have to I saw you shaking your head, so I knew I had one person that believed what I was saying. I think, first of all, we have to demystify research in America. And, you know, in preparing for this presentation today, I learned a lot about NIH. I realized there's an NIH website where you can look up anything. It gives you all the information that you want. And I've been trying, Ella, for a couple of years. I've been asking Elmer, our friend in Boston, to help me. Like, where's this website? It's NIH something. It's funding. You can break the funding down, look at it by institution, by state, by congressional district. You have to understand, I have to understand that these are our tax dollars. These are your tax dollars. These are your tax dollars. That $500 million, that's your money. And we have to hold people accountable. But the thing about it is that you can only hold people accountable, again, talking about being at the table, you have to be at the table. When the RFA is written, when the panels meet, when they talk about who gets funded, and all of that, there's a lot of change that's been taking place because of the pressure that community folk have been putting on individuals in Washington around selection panels and expert panels and all of that, grants panels and all of that. And I know I have friends in prostate cancer that serve on national panels, and they look at those proposals that come in and they say, oh, no. These people are not doing enough. They can do more. And that's where you're needed. And a lot of times people are reluctant, like you, that are community people, are reluctant to be involved because you're like, I don't understand all of this. But what we've been pushing is that if you get selected to be on these panels, that you will, get your expenses paid, that you will receive a per diem for attending these meetings in Washington. And all of that is now becoming standardized across these different funding mechanisms. So I think that there's a lot of advocacy work that is taking place, and there needs to be more. But again, demystifying the research enterprise and understanding that you have a right to be at the table, to ask questions. But if you're not at the table as a community person, then it's just kind of like business as usual.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Another question.
Hello, I just want to say that there's a whole master's level School of Social Work class here, and I was feeling pretty good about myself getting my master's until Mr. Richmond said we should be getting our PhDs. So I just wanted to say I would love to help my community.
Sure your parents would like to hear that too, right?
Well, actually, I was going to just ask a specific question, which is a PhD in what kinds of PhDs would you encourage us to get? And I'm assuming that's so that we're more eligible for NIH funding.
You're not going to hold me responsible if you don't get funded, right? So I think if I had to do it all over again, I would actually go into public health. I love public health. I think you can do so much with public health. But a PhD, a doctoral degree in social work would really be good. It's that's the degree that's recognized. I mean, again, I said the community folk are academics, but when it comes to, remember again, NIH is about science. You have to be a science, and to be a science, the baseline is a PhD. It's a doctoral degree. And it will also give you the skills and knowledge and expertise that you need to be able to develop scientific research, study design, and all of that, you know. So again, the master's is a wonderful degree. It's a very functional, practical degree. But again, if you really want to do the research, and I think that your question goes back to the question that the gentleman asked, is that we need more researchers from the community who are able to talk the language and talk, you know, Pearson correlations, and it's statistically significant at this level or that level. You know, community folks, sometimes we don't care about that, but academics do, and scientists do, and NIH does. So we have to be able to talk the language. We have to be able to communicate that language and understand how to randomize trials and do all of that. And so we just need more people that look like you, look like me, look like others at the table, raising issues. And I'm glad to see that we have a new crop of researchers. I think things are changing tremendously as I move throughout the country and meet young people. They're much more active. They're talking about social justice. And I didn't say it earlier, but this is really about social justice. This is a social justice issue, is the allocation of dollars into communities.
Very quickly, I echo what Al said, but let me add a little bit more. There are PhD careers that combine the scientist aspect, you know, becoming a researcher, and the practitioner aspect. So it is scientist practitioner, and are accredited by major bodies, associations here in the U.S. Actually, my PhD is in clinical community psychology, and it was one of those scientist practitioner models. I decided to go a little bit more into the scientific without losing my identity as a practitioner, you know, as being in the community, working with communities. But I have other friends, a really wonderful friend who went into the practitioner side. You know, he wasn't that much interested in more research. But now we are in a new era in which the focus, really the attention, is on translational aspects. And I think that in translational aspects, we need you, because we don't know as academicians really how to communicate with the public. We don't know how to communicate prevention. We don't know how to communicate. There is a lot of knowledge already in many different areas that go unused, because the population groups just don't know about it, you know? And I think that that's a tragedy to a great extent. So we need to be much better on how to communicate in easy ways to understand for the public, especially those who participated in the research in the first place, in things that they can incorporate into their daily lives, their routines, into their lifestyle.
So I agree with Sergio. We agree with everything, right? So I think the other piece, the new wave, if you will, of doing research is also looking at how helping community folk to understand and document the art and the science of doing our work. Mm-hmm. I'm excited about that too, because what you do is both scientific, but there's also an art to talking to people. It's an art at knowing how to work in communities. And so we need some documentation of that, again, to help to quantify that and to qualify that work.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a little after 1:45, and I'm supposed to break for lunch. So can we take one more, Adam? Okay, Trudy.
Good morning, afternoon. Good morning. I'm Bishop Bernadette Jefferson from Flint, Michigan, CBOP, Community-Based Organized Partners, and Caution, and I enjoyed it to the utmost, and I agree about the finger and the pulse of the community. And then we also, and I don't know, at first it wasn't a question, it was just a compliment on being able to get the community, but my question is, because as you were talking and you were talking about the education and but the community is not always scholastically educated, but they're educated on the community, and that component has to be had. It has to be had in order to get the community feel or the heartbeat of the community. And I was so blessed to be able to go to St. Louis for the genomics in order to, and out of that, I have grandchildren that their grandfather and on their grandfather's side, all the men have died from sudden heart attacks. And so what I said when we were at the genomics is that we need to come up with testing when their children do a physical to make sure that they don't drop dead on the basketball field, the football field, or the tennis court. And when we got back to Flint, they did come up with a test. It was expensive, but Hurley created a test. And what I'm saying is that we have to create, or are you creating, more instances where the community is able to come out, be involved, spend that weekend or spend those 3 days there being educated one with another, knowing the questions to ask, knowing what to do. So we have to, you said that there are dollars and we need to be at the table. So is there anything in the near future that's being planned for the community to be at the table and ask the community so that we can join them together and get the education from both sides and create a better atmosphere for all of us?
So I mentioned earlier the phone service that we have, telephone service in North Carolina where people can call and partner with UNC. But see, I think that what it is you have to translate that into a question. Like, why is it that young African American men at a certain age are dying from heart condition or some type of heart condition? And then begin to work with the academics around that. You know the questions that are important to you. And I think you're absolutely right. We have to work in partnership together and understand and say, and community people just have to say to us, this is my concern. This is the issue. And I know that with community-based participatory research, that's what we, again, are trying to promote, wherein it's not just an academic coming to you saying, I have this research question that I want to work with you around, but you're also saying, you know what, I have a question as well that I am interested in. Like, one of the concerns I have is I'm concerned about the increasing number of women that I hear that are being diagnosed with lupus. I mean, where did lupus come from? What is lupus? Why are so many young African-American women being diagnosed with lupus? We need more research in that. Then I realized there's an organization called the National Organization of Rare Diseases, but there's also the National Lupus Foundation. So you know the questions to ask. We need to partner together, work together to try to figure out what's important. You know, I'll give you one example in closing. One academic partner was sharing with me that they had gone into a community and they were conducting a research study and they just couldn't get any traction at all on the ground. I mean, the community people were not interested in anything that they had to say. They offered them incentives and everything, and nothing worked. And they just went out into the community and they said, what's the issue? And they said, you know what? We're not concerned about that research study. They said they're not. And they said, well, what are you concerned about? And the parents in that community, it was a public housing community, they said, what we're really most concerned about is a safe place for our children to play. And the academic partners and the community partners came together and worked collaboratively to build a very nice playground in that community. And the community partners said, look, because you did that, we're now interested in working with you around something that you're concerned about. But that was not the concern of the community. And so I think the other piece of it is that we have to start where the community is and ask questions and join together. So Sergio and I will both be here for most of the day, if not all the days. So please come up and talk to us. And I'd like to get to know more of you and, again, encourage you to be part of our network.
I think that's it, because we're a little late and we want to give you enough chance to, have a break before lunch. Let me thank again Adam, Cindy, Valerie, Megan, who've been kind of the core planning group for organizing all of this work. Adam's lost sleep. So, you know, we really appreciate what you've done. And also, please thank these men for coming with us today. Sergio, it took him 6 hours yesterday to get here because he came from California and then had a 3-hour layover, and he still has to get back home, and he's definitely on jam with kind of what he has going on. So we appreciate that he is gonna, you know, be jet lagged for us here. So again, thank you all.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.